Okay, introducing myself. I'm Dave Berry. I'm Program Manager for TV Server 1.0. Been at Microsoft since 92, I guess, with a 2-year sabbatical at Cisco. So a bit about networking as well as Microsoft stuff. Nora, I'll introduce now. She'll be doing part of the presentation. Nora Alvio is also Program Manager for TV Server 1.0. And for the purpose of introducing the faces behind the email, we should be your main point of contact for TV Server 1.0 information. We're your point of contact in engineering land. So now you know the names and faces. I'm sorry for you. Here we go. The agenda we want to have a very brief in the last half hour. The next half hour is give you an overview of the plan of record for TV Server 1.0, explain what features are in product and its schedule, how to change that plan of record where necessary, and tell you exactly how to contact us. So let's jump right in. First thing I want to set is some expectations about the product. When we're defining our features, I wanted you to remember that TV Server is just a component of turnkey solution. TV Server itself does not give a network operator a full, television experience. You need your own hand. Need your own billing system, management systems, EPG listing providers, all those things. So our product includes interfaces to all those other things. But the system integrator is the person who has to integrate our component with the other things, get the network operator a complete system. So we're developing our product for the system integrator. We're describing our interfaces, we're describing how to integrate it with the world. We're not describing how to push one or two buttons and be in the interactive TV business. The SI has to do that to his customers. Okay? So the point is that the end customers, the NetOps who use this product, will need to work with system integrators. They may have their system integration group in-house. They can hire MTS. Marketing has a program to recruit and train system integrators. So there will be an army of people available to customers by the time we ship, and it's those people who actually deploy our product as part of the turnkey solution. For showcase customers, the story is slightly different. We have an in-house team called deployment engineering, and they are the system integrator for the customers. So we're trying to use as a rule of thumb an interface between engineering and deployment. That interface looks as much as we can imagine like the interface will be between Microsoft and third-party system integrators later on when we ship. Okay, so as a rule of thumb, if you're in deployment engineering or working with deployment engineering, give us feedback and input about the kinds of API documentation you like, or are we describing the product in a way that helps you the most? Because as an SI, deployment engineering is our number one customer. And it's their job to work with the end NetOps customer. Okay? So let's dive into what the plan of record consists of, and I'll expose the details in the next few slides. The plan of record has a whole bunch of features that are included and not included, specifying what we're building, and we're also specifying features considered and have explicitly decided not to include the product. We have prioritized those features based on input from the UPC and Charter deployment teams, and come up with so-called bottom-up schedule. The release process means that all the features we've defined in our plan of record will be delivered over a period of time. That period of time is called the release schedule. It's driven by when we believe we can actually build features. So the information about when stuff will be ready came from the people who are actually building the product. And that's why we call it the bottoms-up process. We created a small specification. In some cases, there are huge specifications, but we made sure that every single feature had this mini-spec. It's a sort of 2-page document that describes feature in enough detail so that all developers could give input to how long the features would take to build. We then went through a bottoms-up scheduling process to make sure that every feature in the product had a developer believing in the fact that his schedule reflected reality. We could integrate with other components, they could finish their stuff, and we could go code complete at a time that people believed in and can commit to. Then we went to QA and documentation and made sure they could meet those schedules. It's fine if we can deliver a bunch of code by our code complete date, but if it's not documented, it's not going to help anybody. Or if there isn't a resource to test that feature, it's not going to help anybody. So QA and documentation are an integral part of the bottoms-up scheduling process. Having done that, we had a preliminary version of the plan of record, a bunch of features that we'd prioritized, a schedule that we really believed in across the engineering team. We then presented that to deployment. At the time we did it, Charter and UPC were the signed deal customers who gave us a lot of extremely valuable input. And actually, Stephen Levy and Quinn are in the room. I'd like to give special credit for the input we got from you guys on Charter. Thank you. And likewise for UPC. So the point here is that we believe in the process we went through, and all the developers and documentation folks are bought into what I'm about to present. Okay. So what's in the product? We have a whole bunch of features. There are actually about 72 some odd features on a big list, and that's what we say is the product. They're broken down. The product is broken down into categories of features. So when you see the feature sheet, I actually have a handout here, and we'll be pointing you to the website where that handout lives. It's like a 9-page document. There's a page called Applications. And on that page, there's a list of all the features that are considered applications. The list describes the priority for those features and tells you the owner. So both the dev owner, the QA owner, and the program manager for every single feature is contained in the information in our feature list. Now, the list broken down into applications, core infrastructure stuff, which is things like the proxy server, actually is an example of something there. You don't really see it in application, but it has to be within the infrastructure for the product to work. Operational infrastructure is a set of all the features that make the system manageable. The instrumentation, the monitoring tools, the interfaces to things like third-party email provisioning. So you'll see a long list which is considered operational infrastructure. There's another list called content and commerce infrastructure. The content infrastructure is the part of the product that allows NetOps to order content, whether it's advertising or news or sports scores or whatever kind of content they want to get down to clients, and to target content to specific users. Or user profiles, and we allow NetOps to say what type of user gets what type of content. Commerce is really a special case of content targeting because it pertains to advertising. So how to create advertisements, place them within pages in the user experience, and then target which user sees those features. So there's a whole set of stuff called content and commerce infrastructure. Data services is a really important part of the infrastructure. It's the place that stores all the user information, the devices those users have, the kinds of services they're allowed to get, the state of their provisioning, what software is on all boxes, and so on. So we maintain a lot of information about all devices, and actually everything above this line depends on that data work. The data warehouse is a huge feature. It's sort of like a feature on its own. It's something that network operators can use to analyze all the logs generated by clients and by servers. Clients generate logs about time spent on each channel, what's the previous channel, also a click stream for web visiting, and troubleshooting information, crash logs, the ability to analyze any good or bad situation that arises on clients. Same on server applications. The servers are capable of generating a log stream that gives network operators information about, their state of health. Is the highest level thing to say about that. So all of these logs get piped into one huge database called the data warehouse. And at that point, operators can slice and dice the information any way they find useful. Show me the 5 most visited websites by people who spend more than 2 hours a week watching ESPN. Another way of finding where to do your sports advertising on the internet. So the data warehouse is really an extremely valuable feature of the product. Globalization and localization applies to the entire product. Nora will be giving a presentation later on here about exactly the plan to make our product truly international from the ground up. When you look at the feature list, you're going to see then these breakdowns of all the features. And you'll find that features are prioritized with a number from 1 through 5. 1 means that feature is absolutely in the product, and we will slip the product to include that feature. Okay, so an example is the subscriber and user database. Nothing works if that's not in the product. So it's a P1. If we have to delay the product to finish that feature, we will. A priority 2 is basically the same, except there's a little bit of risk about, does a customer really want that feature, or is a QA resource available? There might be a TBH somewhere on a staffing list, but we believe we can finish it, and it is in the plan of record. You can assume it will be delivered unless we tell you the plan of record has changed. So that's what the 2 means. 3 means it is at risk, and we have to negotiate with UA and documentation to add the feature to the plan of record. Saying it's there, we think it's important, it's under development, but it's not going to be delivered unless you scream and then negotiate to add it back to the POR. This information I'm describing is on the sheet that you'll get, and it's also on the website. So I just wanted to explain that there's a lot of detailed information in there which you need to be familiar with when you're positioning the product to customers. Okay, so I go down to 3. 4 is priority that says it's not going to be in the product, it's not going to be complete by code complete, there are no QA or documentation resources on that product, on that feature. But we think it's quite an important feature, and we'd like to add it if we possibly can. So if for whatever reason some slack opens up, or a particular developer is capable of working on a feature quicker than we thought, then a 4 is a candidate to be upgraded and made into a real feature. A 5 means it is absolutely not going to be included in the product. So 5 means we're telling you we thought about it, we're telling you it's definitely not going to be developed for this release. Okay, so the description of our priorities is on the first page of the plan of record document, and you'll find that every single feature on these lists has a priority, so you'll know whether it's in or out of the product. Now, the really key thing is that we believe we are going to finish this product by 131 within engineering. The code will all be written, it will be feature complete. Every feature on the feature list will be coded and ready to be tested by that date. So it's important to realize that there will be no functionality added after 131. If you look at the plan of record and there's some feature you think your customer wants, you're not going to add it to the product after 131. So make sure to raise the flag like now, before the middle of January anyway, to negotiate a change to the plan record. I'll explain the process for doing that. And so, okay, the key takeaway for this bullet here then is that when we reach code complete, our product will be functionally done. So no new features added until version 2, which is like the year 2001. Okay? And we're not closing the door and trying to be hard work with on that point. There is a process for changing the plan of record that I'll describe. It's really important to understand that we've documented what we're doing by that date, and there's nothing more or less in the product.
So Dave, does that imply that we'll essentially have one TV server feature release a year and that everything else will be maintenance?
So the question was, does that imply that there'll be one TV server feature release per year and everything else will be a new release, maintenance? Yeah, this is an important question to understand. So whether we release a new product once a year or less than once a year is TBD. That's marketing. So 2.0 might be late next year, or it might be early in 2000. Nobody knows. And when is 3.0? We know even less. So the question about is it once a year or not is dependent on, you know, what's the delta between 1.0 and what other customers want, how quickly can do it.
So the 2001, we shouldn't get too worried about that. It's until next version.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. So yes, thank you. The 2001 was an indication of when the next version could be expected. We're not saying that you should plan on every year being a new feature.
Well, a lot of features can get added through APIs and the extensible model of the system.
Yes, thank you. So the comment was that a lot of features can be added through the APIs and the customizability of the product. And those features that get added in that way would be work done by customers, system integrators, deployment engineering outside of the product team. So a really important point, this is a platform that customers will add to in the field, and those additions are in no way limited by what we're doing by 131.
Actually, Dave, before we move on from this slide, I think it's important to understand that the current plan of record and the current schedule, all the POR features that are included, are all assuming that we will have the client dependencies resolved by 131. And so currently the company is going through their planning process, and this is work in progress sort of thing.
Thanks, Nora. I wish you hadn't mentioned it. Just kidding. Yes, I was on a roll. Okay. So here's the server schedule. The point Nora made was that this information I'm presenting about the server plan of record is that this is the server plan of record. It does not take into account the client plan of record, because there was a client for us to be planning with very recently when a decision was made about client some of our large customers would be going with. We now have that information and are working very closely with the client team. It's work in progress to evaluate their plan of record and to work features that the server depends on into that client plan of record. When will they be there means when will we have an end-to-end integrated client and server. I will give you a heads up about where that process is going after we've gone through the server dates. So the exciting news is that as recently as 2 months ago, we shipped a version of TV Server called the Deployment Pre-Release. It is available, it's in the market, and it was intended specifically to enable deployment engineering to start adaptation work in the field with customers. And even more specifically, it has stable billing interfaces, because the interface between our server and billing systems, we believe, was the most amount of work to do when integrating our stuff with the real world. So the billing interfaces will carry through to future versions of the product. Adaptations between our server and real world billing systems should be based on this DPR release. That was the purpose of shipping that product. In March, we will have an alpha release of our product. This will be based on the 131 code base, and it will be tested feature complete. It will be suitable for 1,000 users. It will have a rudimentary level of testing, so that we know we will support a lot of users. Stability will not be guaranteed. It may be necessary to reboot servers or clients from time to time, because it is an alpha level product at this point in time. It's 5 weeks after we first compile everything. So that gives you an idea of how stable it will be. We're doing our best, and that'll be alpha quality. May is the date for our beta. It'll be more stable. There'll be a lot of bug fixes. It'll be simulated to 100,000 user load. And it'll be a strong data quality. It'll be something that we believe is the first time a customer can look at that build and start making decisions about when to go commercial production on TV Server. The beta will have bugs. But at some point between beta and RTM, we're going to give our 3 showcase customers the opportunity to look at the bug list and decide, which of the bugs perhaps we don't care about. There might be some features that are okay to implement a little bit later when they're more stable. So if you're Charter or UPC or AT&T, you'll look at the bug list sometime soon after beta, and when it reaches a point that there's a build that you think is okay for you to go to production on, we will support that as a release for that one customer. So that's what we mean by some interim build here, where the date can be driven by the showcase customer. They pick the build, they pick the date, they decide if the bug list okay for them, and we will support that release.
The new approach to software development, that the customer picks a bill that they think is RTM for them.
Yes.
We call that shit.
They call it ship. So the point is, yes, there's a new way of releasing software. The customer tell you to ship it. And it's actually a reflection of the high-touch nature of this product. We understand the TV server requires a lot of integration, a lot of contact with the customer. We want to be as accommodating as we can for these three showcase customers. The really important thing is we're saying these don't sell this product until it's a 1.0 product. At that point, it will be a release quality product suitable for any or all customers. This is the version of TV server that we should be selling to anybody other than the three showcase people. It'll be tested to 1 million users. Stability will be guaranteed. You can bill on this product. It'll be supported by Microsoft Product Support Service Group. Mr. Michael.
Dave, I thought PSS had supported beta. Is that?
Yeah, the question was, will PSS support the beta? And the answer is absolutely yes. PSS will support the three showcase customers in a beta time frame, but not anyone else. And those three customers must upgrade to 1.0 to continue getting PSS support. Okay?
But there will be the ability to do trial quotes. I mean, you don't use the terminology, but in May, I mean, the whole process is long for customers.
Yes.
Right? With
Yes.
planning and everything. So
Yes.
you don't wait to engage with a customer in August. You start now. And the whole project plan is lots of steps.
Exactly. So the point was that that life does not begin in August for customers. They have to do a lot of integration work and trials and ramping up their environment, training their customer service reps, and building billing interfaces. That's why we have alpha, beta, and RTM. Yeah. Okay. So we're saying that PSS is signed up to support the showcases. Okay. So that was the plan of record. And actually, before we discuss how to change the plan of record, let's address the point Nora raised about how may or may not these dates move based on what client features are available. The MSTV client has a plan of record which has them shipping a product called Beta 2 on 12/17, which is next week. So next week, 12/17, there will be a version of the Microsoft TV client. It is missing some features that are required for it to work completely with TV server, but it has most of the features. I'm going to say more than 50% of the features in that Beta 2 are suitable for it to work with TV server. So when we go code complete on 131, it's not going to be a completely integrated client. It's going to be a delta in time between 131 and such time as the client is fully integratable with the server. We think that's going to result in us being able to solidify the server code base according to this schedule, subject to some features that are going to be outstanding on these dates. And we're going to move these dates so that when we really release to the public our actual alpha, beta, and RTM dates, that those will be dates for an end-to-end usable integrated product, client, and server together one schedule. Okay? So we are driving as hard as we can towards coming up with those dates. It's, I think, worst case, weeks away, maybe even next week. Okay. So the takeaway is everything I presented is what the server team is going to drive towards as hard as we can. There's a slight delta between the features here and features that will actually work with real clients. That delta will be absorbed into our schedule once there is a nailed down client schedule. And it will result in some movement on these dates. But when we give the new dates, it will be a real integrated end-to-end client and server with one schedule. So how to change this plan? If you feel there's a really compelling customer we need to do business with, and there are features that customer absolutely needs that are not on our plan of record. The first thing is to try and convince the customer to postpone that change until post 1.0. And that's because there really is no slack in our schedule for changes. And introducing them is likely to impact the schedule for all showcases and for the broader platform. So if we make any change, introduce any feature to our code base, the whole product is going to be late for all showcases, and platform will be late. Yes, which means a lot of people will be really mad, not just the one customer who wants that one new feature. So the first thing is to change plan of record is to try not to change the plan of record. The next thing is, if we can't negotiate away the requirement and we're prepared to accept possible schedule consequences, then the product team will try to build the change into the platform in a way that can be present in all builds. So that's really important. The product team is saying, if there's a change, it affects the entire product. It goes into the platform. We're not going to support code base that's specific to one customer. That's what deployment engineering is there for. And the understanding goal is to maintain the customizations, adaptations, and additional features that are outside our core platform deliverable. Okay? So if you want to make a change, understand that it goes into the product for everybody. There are going to be a lot of customers that don't require all the features. That's why we say optionally enabled. Like if there's a killer satellite operator, we absolutely have to be in business with this person. There may be a lot of other customers, like all the cable people, that don't need satellite support. So satellite support will be optionally enabled for cable customers. That's what that means. But it will be in the product. So this allows us to keep building and testing a single product and ship something that's release quality. Needing to build and QA more than one release would certainly impact the schedule. So understanding that those are the steps we'd like you to go through and think about before you come to us and say, let's change the feature list. Go through that, and then I'll be your point of contact for negotiating the changes with dev, QA, documentation, and others affected by the feature. And Nora is 100% up to speed as well, so both of us are suitable contact people for anything to do with the plan of record. We will drive change requests and make them part of the OR.
Dave, is it accurate to say that for Server 1.0, the showcases that we're going to be looking at for changing the OR will be just the three main showcases that we're working with?
The question was, will we change the plan of record for anybody other than UPC, Charter, and AT&T? And the answer is not necessarily. If there's a really important strategic customer that Microsoft has to do business with, they could be added to the list of three. That is my understanding. Okay. Given that, adding any customer is going to impact the schedule for all customers. Okay?
The other thing to point out, too, though, is with those showcase customers, they agree to accept a willing set of features from even the 1.0 record just to make their day. So
yes.
I mean, we're not talking about adding features. We're talking about taking out features.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So the point was that I think the way of summarizing that is that the plan of record is a superset of all the features required by the three showcase customers and other features that we thought were strategic and important to have in platform for any and all customers when we ship. So yeah, so the point is well taken that for a given trial or a given customer, it's fine to take the product and use all the features. You can depend on a subset as required for your deployment. Okay? So I'd like to turn over to Nora now, and we'll go to the last few slides. Thanks, Nora.
Good, thank you.
On the features slide that you had up there, you mentioned content commerce, and you were talking about commerce providing targeted content there.
Mm-hmm.
You should note that the default form includes Commerce Server 4.0, and that's what we're based on, which, in addition to just targeting, also opens up a whole slew of possibilities for cable operators to provide their own commerce sites, catalog sites,
yes,
within their own garden. It's a product in its own right. So,
I see. Thank you. So the point John added to our discussion about what's in the product is that our product will integrate with the Microsoft Commerce Server 4.0 that is in its own right a foundation for building rich e-commerce sites. And that should be, an advertised feature of TV Server. Any NetApp who wants to deploy TV commerce has the full functionality of Commerce Server available to them through our product. I'd also like to build on that point by saying that when you look at the application list, emails, search, favorites, content centers, and the stuff we're doing, if it appears to a customer that that list is kind of short and they'd like to see a whole lot of phenomenal new cool applications like video on demand or different kinds of commerce site and walled gardens, the thing to sell them on is that our product, again, is a platform. We ship you some reference implementations of apps that get you off the ground and is functional on day one. It's sort of like taking Windows 3.0 when it first came out. It had Write, a Notepad, and a couple of rudimentary apps that you could actually do something with Windows when you took the shrink wrap off the box. But nobody was pretending that Write was the world's best word processing program. Lots of other companies added powerful processing programs on top of Windows. The analogy is exactly the same here. TV Server 1.0 is a platform for third parties to build new compelling applications for NetOps. Our list is short because we want to partner with World to build thousands of killer TV commerce apps in the future. Okay, so hand over to Nora. Thanks, Nora.
Thanks. All right. Okay, so I'm the localization and the release program manager for TV Server, and I'll just briefly go over the plans for the international versions of TV Server 1.0. So we're going to basically release 7 versions of Server 1.0. We're going to be English, Dutch, Italian, Iberian Portuguese, French, German, and Spanish. The plan is to have Dutch and English available by alpha. Iberian Portuguese will be released 30 days after US RTM, and the rest of the European languages will be released 60 days after US RTM. What we're doing with Japanese is basically we're working with Yoshi Nakayama in Web TV Japan so that he can help us, and his team can help us do some testing of the US server on Japanese components like Japanese Windows 2000, SQL Server, Commerce Server, etc. They're also going to be helping us to do double byte enabling verification just to find out what areas are not enabled properly for our server. And we're going to be releasing the Japanese version sometime after Server 1.0 RTMs. The time frame is not determined yet. It really depends on Nakayama-san's findings and to figure out really how much additional work is necessary. I'd like to point out one thing, that the plan of record is for us to localize, to translate the web applications, basically all the search, mail, registration, and the rest of the other web applications, and this is our tool only. We will not localizing the installer, the documentation, any of the admin tools. All of it will be left in English for 1.0. And again, this will be revised post 1.0. So that's basically it for the international version. So if you have any questions, let me know now, later. It's fine. And then the last is contact information. How do you guys get more information about everything that's being presented today? And it's actually, everything is posted on TVPAC server. The site is being revised, and we're trying to re-architect it to make it a bit more, easier to navigate and just easier to access information. So, but everything is being posted there. And if there's any questions about where to find information, or if something is not there that you need, I'm the contact for that. The program managers, as Dave mentioned, basically Dave being the lead for program manager lead for the 1.0 version, and I'm the release manager for that. So there's also an alias, TV server leads. It's made up of the server dev managers and the program managers. If you have any questions about anything specific to feature, schedule, anything like that, you could send it through that if you can, both Dave and myself. There's also another one called TV Server 1.0 Managers, and that's the dev leads again, program managers, QA manager, documentation, deployment leads, and all that. So that's a very good idea. It's also to send information if you're not sure who the contact person is for your specific question. Okay, any questions?